Hi, Mr. Loader here. Wanted to talk to you about the learning for Tuesday, the 19th of January 2021. It's for our English lesson. The Walt is to write the beginning of our own picture book stories. Now, I'm going to start off by just a bit of a recap. Okay. Now, the question is, what words would best suit the sentence? Now, really, this links back to expanded noun phrases. So we've got Jack gave the giant a. Now, it could just be a walking stick, and that would be a noun phrase, wouldn't it? But we're looking for two words that we could put before it to describe the walking stick. Might just want to have a quick think, what type of word is it going to be that you're going to put before the walking stick? 5 seconds to have a think about that. Yep, it would be adjectives. Okay, so you might want to pause the video and think about what two adjectives would be suitable to describe the walking stick, the iPhone, and the heated blanket. Okay, now I thought I'd just change this last sentence a little bit at the start of it so it wasn't repetitive. Instead of Jack gave the giant, I put the generous boy, because he is a boy, isn't he? And he is generous because he's helping the giant out. And instead of gave, I used the word presented. Now, I thought that fitted in nicely with what we talked about last week with synonyms. Struggling to say it again. Okay, so have a think. And then we'll have a look on the next slide at what suggestions or possibilities you could use. So I might want to pause the video and have a think about that. Okay, here's some examples that you could do. You could have used brown and wooden, so that Jack gave the giant a brown wooden walking stick. For the iPhone, Jack gave the giant a brand new iPhone. And then the final one, the generous boy presented the giant with a soft, warm, heated blanket. And on the next slide, I've done some more examples because there's going to be more than one way. So you might come up with some other ones to the ones I've come up with. And so they possibly may be right. You might want to just check them with an adult, check they make sense. So we've got a long metal walking stick, an expensive shiny iPhone, and then for the heated blanket, a thick, luxurious heated blanket. So quite often luxurious things, they cost a lot of money. Okay, now moving on to writing the beginning of our story. When writing our stories, what should we make sure we include and consider? So these are things that we're constantly talking about in year 2 to remember. We also talk about finger spaces and making sure our letters are on the line and formed properly. Capitals and full stops. Using powerful language, that's our adjectives. Thinking about what is the best adjective to use. Now that links back to our synonyms. Making sure we go into detail, and I've just given some examples about that. Why did he do it? Where did he do it? How did he do it? What did he do? Okay. Right, I'm just going to exit this screen a little bit so I can just type in here. Now, really, I want to just show you my story map from the other day. You can see some of my screens. Hopefully you can see this. So if I go back to the beginning now, I had a morning, Andy, and Jim. So you might want to get your story map out ready when it comes to writing. And then on the next line, we've got Jim, a window, and a beanstalk. So I'm going to start off with, I'm not going to start with Jim woke up. I'm going to try and start in a different way. So I'm not using Jim all the time. So early one morning. Now I'm going to stop actually. Sorry, because I always demonstrate my sentence first verbally. So I'll say it to you first. Early one morning, Jim woke up and got out of bed. Let's try that. So 11 words. So early one morning, Jim woke up and got out of bed. So early one morning, I started with a capital letter. Jim woke up and got out of bed. Now, we could add a bit of detail in there, couldn't we? We could say out of his comfy bed. Okay, and then what was the next thing? About the window, wasn't it? If I look back on my story map. On my story map, Jim, window, beanstalk. So, Jim looked out of his window and saw a... Oh, I'm trying to think of the word that I use now. I didn't use magnificent, didn't I? A massive, I think it was, beanstalk. So Jim looked out of his window and saw a massive beanstalk. So I'm including those adjectives because they fit in with our expanded noun phrases, don't they? We could have a massive green beanstalk. Okay, if we wanted to add a bit more detail, we could say he couldn't. It was so tall he couldn't see the top of it. It was so tall that he couldn't see the top of it. So we're going to say about him climbing it, aren't we? Well, why does he want to climb it? Well, he's curious, isn't he? When you're curious, you want to find something out. Instead of, again, Jim, we could do the boy was curious, so he decided to climb it. The boy was curious to see what was at the top, so he decided to climb it. So the boy was curious to see what was at the top, so he decided to climb it. The boy was curious to see what was at the top, so he decided to climb it. Okay, I'm going to go back to my story map. You can see I'm adding bits in, aren't I? I've done about the... So we get into the clouds, the eyes, and the castle, aren't we? So instead of Jim got to the top, we could do when he got to the top. So I'm not starting the same all the time. I'm trying to think of different ways of starting. When he got to the top, he saw a magnificent castle. When it could be a magnificent stone castle, couldn't it? He got to the top. He saw a magnificent stone castle. Now we could have a bit more in here, couldn't we? We could say he couldn't believe his eyes. He couldn't believe his eyes. And I'm going to put an exclamation mark that because it's saying it with emotion. Okay, now once you've finished writing your story, and remember you're using your story maps, then you might just want someone to just have a look over it and see, check it makes sense. And you might want to, when you've finished it as well, check that you use capital letters and full stops, check you've included adjectives and noun phrases, and try not to use the same way of starting your sentences all the time. So Jim, 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 because it gets really boring, doesn't it, and repetitive. Okay, hope you enjoy, and I hope you found this beneficial. Thank you and take care. Stay safe, Mr. Loader.